Jessica, tell us about you and your family.
Well, it is me and my husband, Michael, and our 3 kids. She's the oldest, so I brought her to help. Faith, this is Faith. We live in the area, grew up Adventist, so we've been at Centerville for a while, but I like to cook, she likes to cook.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Faith, do you like to cook? Aha, yeah. Good deal. And what's your favorite things to do when you're not cooking? Playing. Is there a favorite play that you like? Do you like to go to the park? Oh, yeah, be outside. Nice. Okay. Faith, what are you and your mom going to make today? Is it cranberry fluff? Yeah. Let's see how you make it.
All right. So this is a recipe that we do a lot at the holidays. Growing up, oddly, I'm not a picky eater, but I was never a huge fan of the just traditional cranberry sauce. So I found this recipe a few years ago and have made it many different ways. You start with fresh cranberries that you put in a food processor and you blend up. So we have these already blended. You just kind of want like a fine chop. So you add those in first. And then what you can do is add in, you're going to add in this is like about a package, a small package of cranberries. It is about a half a cup of sugar. Now you can adjust that and do less. You don't have to have that much. And then this is a small can of pineapple. So Faith, you want to help put that in? Now, the recipe usually says to have these 3 ingredients in the refrigerator a little bit to kind of soak together and meld all their good flavors. That's enough. Flavors. So you can make this part the night before and then just let it sit in the fridge for a while. So we will mix that. Here, you do that. I will mix too. And then the next part of the recipe is where you can kind of alter it to fit your preferences of dietary preferences. Now, you can make this vegan, and a couple options to make it vegan would be the easiest way is they conveniently have vegan Cool Whip, basically, which this is called True Whip, which definitely isn't, it's processed, but it's vegan and a good, easy option. Another way that I have done it is to buy coconut cream. You would put this in your refrigerator overnight, and then you basically scoop out the hardened coconut cream and you blend it with a mixer, and it basically fluffs up almost exactly like heavy whipping cream would, and it is a good vegan alternative, and I have done that many times. For the sake of ease, we will use the True Whip today, but this is a really good, healthy alternative that I have used. And then if you want to be traditional, I guess, and you can also use heavy whipping cream. So it's totally your preference. They all 3 work great, and you probably couldn't tell taste-wise the difference that much. So today we will just use the True Whip. But so after this would be mixed and sit in your fridge for a little bit, you would, and chill it. You just you want everything cold. You would add whatever cream fluff type ingredient you would want. And I think, you want like a couple cups worth. It honestly doesn't matter if you put a little bit more, a little bit less. And then you would add a couple cups of, these are also conveniently vegan. They're like the vegan marshmallows, dandies, that you can get pretty much at most grocery stores. So you add 2 cups worth of that. Here, you do that. And then you fold all this together. So you have the cranberries, fresh cranberries. You have canned crushed pineapple. So a little bit of sugar. Again, you can adjust that as you want. Some sort of whipping coconut cream or the Cool Whip type stuff, and then marshmallows. Now we would just fold this all together. You can help fold it, Faith. as we make a big mess.
That's all the fun of cooking,
Yeah,
isn't it?
exactly. Especially if my son was here. Okay, here, let me do the rest of it, sweetie. Okay, so we'll get this out. So, if our ingredients were a little more chilled, it wouldn't be quite as soupy as it's showing right now. And then you also can chill this overnight. This is a great recipe to make the night before for like a Thanksgiving or a Christmas meal. It does very well. This is much more soupy right now than it traditionally is. So I should have had my ingredients a little more chilled. The cranberries are actually defrosting, but
they're good. Looks
but
good.
Yes, it's a very
what do you think?
tasty.
You think we should try it? Okay,
There
here's
you
your
go.
spoon. You want a spoon for Mom?
Sure.
All right.
Are you gonna get a
Let's
marshmallow?
try. Dig in. What do you think?
Good?
Did you get a marshmallow?
Of course.
That's really good. Thank you. That is awesome. I think that'll be something really nice for Thanksgiving or Christmas. Don't you think so? Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, Adelaide, this looks wonderful. I love rhubarb, and you're going to do a rhubarb strawberry crisp.
Yes, I chose the rhubarb strawberry crisp this morning because this recipe that I found is gluten-free. I have a person in my family that is gluten-free, and I didn't want to have to demonstrate rolling out a gluten-free crust. I was a little bit insecure, so I thought that the crisp would be a good alternative. We grow rhubarb in our garden, and I've had some experiences making rhubarb crisp or pie that were not very pleasant. When I cut the rhubarb with the thickness that they usually recommend, and I don't pre-simmer, I found very stringy, sometimes tough rhubarb on the baked pie. So for this recipe, you would preheat your oven to 400, and I'm going to just show the crust first. It's a mixture of 2 cups of rolled oats and 2 cups of almond flour. It has really just 4 ingredients. And then half a cup of softened butter. I'm using the Earth Balance here. I pre-measure it. Half cup of the Earth Balance. And I'm using our local honey instead of sugar. I found this recipe that calls for honey. I'm using half a cup of the honey.
And this is honey that you guys, you have your own hives, and you use this for the proceeds for missions, if I remember right.
Yes, yes.
So anybody that would like your honey can contact you for local honey.
Yes. We select projects locally or international for missions, and this year each of the family chose 1 project, so we are splitting 4 the profits of the honey. So I'm just mixing it here. I'm sure I could be using my hands. Just about the almond flour, I may have misplaced my almond flour that was already grated. So this morning I just used my sliced almonds, and I used the food processor to make them fine. So I'm going to put a little bit of this on the bottom of the dish. A very, very thin layer. The strawberry, I have experimented using frozen strawberries and also fresh strawberries, but it always feels nicer using the fresh somehow. So I have the dish here. And the rhubarb, you notice sometimes when I'm very busy, I'll use the food processor to chop the rhubarb. This time I used a knife. I chopped very fine because, like I said, usually when you follow the recommendations of the recipe, I think they are a little bit too big. And I found...
Now is this is obviously fresh. Did you
Yes.
steam this at all?
No, I picked it this morning and I cut them very small. But, you know, a lot of the times, sometimes I steam them for a little bit. Today I won't. But if you're concerned that they will be kind of stringy, or if they're tough, or maybe they have been frozen for a little bit, I would recommend steaming for a short time. So this will call for honey too. So another half cup of honey. Most of the recipes call for, you know, granulated sugar.
Honey is definitely a better alternative.
And this one, my 6-year-old helped me to have some orange peel, grated orange peel. He helped me this morning to do that, and a tablespoon of orange juice. If I was going to steam this for a little bit, I would take all of this to the stove for 10-15 minutes if you're concerned about how tough your rhubarb is. Since this is fresh and I chopped small, I'm not concerned about that. And also another ingredient, let's see, a 4 teaspoon of salt. And half a teaspoon of vanilla. Also calls for either half a cup of cornstarch or tapioca, instant tapioca. I decided to use the instant tapioca today. Okay, half a cup. Okay. I noticed when I simmer the strawberry and the rhubarb on the stove, a lot of water is released, and sometimes, even though the recipe may not call for a thickener, I would recommend using one if you decide to simmer. One thing about rhubarb that I discovered the other day is that you don't need to blanch in order to freeze them. You could just clean and cut them and freeze them in a tray, and then after they are a little bit frozen, you can package them in a bag. So I'm going to put my rhubarb strawberry mix on the bottom, and I'm gonna have this baked, and they're going to show you the final product a little bit later. The recipe says that you should bake for 10 minutes on 400, and then for 35 to 40 minutes on 350. And they say that you can bake without a foil, and then if it gets too brown, you can put a foil on. I will start baking with the foil, and perhaps the last 10 minutes of baking, I'll remove that. I think that will be a better, I don't want to take any chances. With honey, especially if you use honey, things can burn very easily.
And I like that idea of using the foil to begin with, because especially these are raw now, you're creating that steam effect, and then you'll get that crispy top at the end.
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
One thing that I discovered, I'm baking this because I forgot my pie crust, my pie dish. This will likely not to overflow, but a lot of the times when I do rhubarb pies, they overflow in the oven and becomes a mess. I usually use a tray under a baking sheet, a cookie sheet under, because it will, it really usually the juices just spill over. So I recommend using that when you're doing the rhubarb pie. So that's the rhubarb crisp, not pie. But you can use the same filling on a regular pie crust or even graham cracker crust. And we usually serve with either homemade ice cream or plant-based ice cream or plant-based toppings, like a whip, plant-based toppings.
Very good. It looks wonderful. I can't wait to try it. All right. Okay, this is the finished product of the strawberry rhubarb crisp, and we put this in a 400 oven.
Initially.
Yes, with it covered.
Yes.
And that created that steam effect. Grab me that fork there. Thank you. I want everybody to see. Yes, see how nice and soft. That's key for the rhubarb, the strawberry. And we cooked it for probably the last part of it was cooked for, without the cover, for probably 15, 20 minutes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. I got rhubarb still in the garden. We'll be making some of this. Thank you. This is awesome.
Great. So just, keeping the cover was essential. Otherwise, because we're using honey, not sugar, it tends to burn faster. So if we removed more at the end.
Yep. Yeah, it turned out very well.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, if I understand right, this is a typical Korean dish, and it's Chap
Chae.
Chae.
Chap Chae.
Chap Chae. And when would you normally serve this to your family?
So when growing up, when we had it, it was usually with some sort of gathering, whether it was a church potluck or a family gathering or a holiday, and we would make that.
It looks, I love what I'm seeing for ingredients. Show us
Yeah.
how you make it.
Okay. So one of the things, the main ingredient would be this noodle, a sweet potato starch noodle, and I haven't really seen it anywhere else except at the Korean market. There might be some at the health food stores. It is gluten-free. So this particular package only has about 300 grams, which is about 10 ounces. So the recipe has been adjusted for 1 pack of this noodle. So before I start, and people have boiled it first, then they cut it. What I'm doing is I soak it about 30 minutes in just, room temperature water, and it'll soften to the point where I can actually cut it in half like this. I like it this length because it's manageable to eat, where if it's longer, you just have a longer noodle that might be a little more challenging to eat. So for that reason, I like to cut it in half. So while this is soaking for about 30 minutes, that's when I do all my vegetable preparation and chopping. So I think I've shown this before. And the way I like to cut my carrots, and this is perfect for the recipe. I've washed it. I haven't peeled it. I've scrubbed it. And so this is ready for slicing. After I slice, then I cut into strips. And then I have my carrots ready. And then I would cut my onions. This is about half an onion that's been sliced like that. And then I take my scallion, and this is about 2 to 3 scallions. And I cut it into about 2-inch lengths, approximately. And then the white part of the scallion I will cut in half. And then this is also ready. And then the next thing I would add are, so instead of meat, traditionally they would have slices of meat. I think you've heard of bulgogi, which is a Korean meat dish. And it would be pretty much that type of meat that we would add, but a smaller portion, thinly sliced into the chap chae. But what we've done is just doubled up on the mushroom, because the mushroom is a really great substitute for the meat. It has a chewy texture, especially if you use the dehydrated shiitake. And I think the flavor on the dehydrated shiitake is also deeper, richer. The fresh shiitake mushrooms are, and I've mixed a combination of them here. And just to show you, this is what the dehydrated shiitakes would look like. You would just hydrate it in, I just do it in hot water really quick for about 15-20 minutes. It gets very soft, and you could squeeze it out. Then you cut off the stems, because the stems are a little bit on the woody side, and I don't like the texture of that. It's too hard to chew. And then you would slice it like this. So these are a few of the dehydrated mushrooms that I've cut up. And then these are the fresh ones. You can just take a look at the difference. But they both taste really great. Once you have the seasoning in there, it's hard to tell the difference. And then on the shiitake broth, I save it, and you could use it for stock, and you don't have to throw that away. It's really great for that. The other thing with the mushrooms, I know a lot of people don't like mushrooms because of the way they're grown. The thing about the shiitake mushrooms, they grow on tree trunks naturally, and when they're actually grown for production, they're also grown on tree trunks, not the way the button mushrooms are grown. So it's a cleaner method, and also I just think that it's one of those where it's just not only in the flavor, but it also has protein. It even has one of the food sources that's not common to have vitamin D, but this has a gram of vitamin D in about 4 ounces. So for that reason, I think it's a great option for instead of meat. Then the next thing I would need is spinach. And I use just a regular bunch. I've used, the pre-packaged baby spinach as well. But traditionally, we always get like the bunch of spinach, and then you wash it. And then I've already cut this. I just cut it in half, so they're about this length. And then they're ready to go. Okay, so while this has been soaking, all the vegetables are chopped. So what I do is I do everything in one pan here. Oh, and before we go, I'm going to make our sauce, because I want the sauce to be ready when the noodles are done. Okay, so for the sauce I'm using today, it's the Korean soy sauce. But if you are gluten intolerant, you can substitute this with a gluten-free product very easily. But since this is what I have, I'm going to use that. I'm putting in the recipe I said 4 to 5, but I've been using 5 tablespoons because it just works for this quantity. But you could adjust it to your taste. This is a tablespoon, and I'm putting in about 5 here. And I'm using light brown sugar. I usually use this first. And I'm going to put in about 2 tablespoons of that. And then I'm going to put in, this is sesame oil, roasted sesame oil, sesame seed oil, and I'm going to put in 2 teaspoons of that. And then I will add about 3 cloves of garlic. Okay. And I like to have it all minced up, and then we'll add it to the sauce. And you don't have to add this, but we love sesame seeds, and I know there are people who are allergic to it. I add about a tablespoon of sesame seeds to the sauce. And you can buy this at the Korean market, or I've seen it at Whole Foods as well. And the sesame oil, I've seen a really good one at the Whole Foods as well. So now the sauce is ready and the water is boiling. So I'm going to cook my noodles in it until it becomes translucent and the texture is chewy and firm, but still soft enough because I don't want it to be really hard. That takes about 6 minutes. Okay. So you could see it was a whitish color, and it's becoming more translucent. And let me see. Okay, it's a little firm still, so I'm going to let it cook. So after I drain the noodle here, I put it into a big bowl while it's still warm. I take the sauce that I just made, and I put about 3 tablespoons of that soy sauce mixture. Make sure I'm dissolving the sugar there. And then I mix it in. I should put that over here. And I mix it in. Okay. Okay, and while that is sitting, one of the things I do with my spinach is traditionally my mom would have a pot of water and she would put the spinach in, and pretty much a couple of seconds later scoop it out. But you know, spinach is really great. It has some protein in it. It has all these vitamins, K as well as B, but the B vitamins are water soluble. So if you're actually cooking these in a lot of water, you end up losing some of the B vitamins. So what I like to do is wash it. There's some of that water that's still on there, and I just kind of cook it for a minute. It'll soften, and then I flip it. I don't add any extra water. The water will come out from the spinach. I put a little bit of salt to kind of help it along and season it as well. And just, and then I just cook it this way. And then after, when it's done, I add it to the bowl. It cooks pretty fast. The other thing about these sweet potato noodles, the starch noodles, they're carbs. So I wouldn't call it a low carb meal, but they have a lower glycemic index. So that's another health benefit, especially for the diabetics, if you're looking at that. So that's something. Okay, so we're just gonna let the spinach wilt a little bit more. The other thing I like about this is I like to, I don't remember how my mom did it, but I like using one frying pan. So I've done, because I know she used to have a big stock pot and she would make the noodles, and she would also do the spinach. But as you can see, though, the noodles, once it was softened, we didn't have to use a lot of water. So I could use this frying pan in there. And then with the way I'm cooking my spinach like this, I don't have to use a stock pot.
I really like that technique because oftentimes when you get the noodles, they're crunchy.
Yeah.
And soaking them, you can cut them to size without breaking them into little pieces. That hadn't heard that technique before, and I really, really liked that. That was cool.
Yeah, so the way that my mom would do it is she would cook the noodles, and then she would rinse it in cold water so it's easy to handle, and then she would cut it up. But then, I don't know, maybe I have OCD, but I just like the fact that, the noodles, when I'm cutting them, they're fairly, like the way I soak them, they're kind of even. And so they kind of come out more uniform in size, where if you do it the way with the boiling and then straining, they're all kind of a big mess there.
No, you definitely get a more uniform size, and they're much easier to handle that way.
Yeah. So, so that's what I like about it. So I think this is pretty good. I'm just gonna throw all the water liquid here into this because this is where all your vitamin, B, the water-soluble vitamins are. So I like that. And then I also use this frying pan to do my other veggies. And for my other veggies, the next one I'm going to do is the onions. And I'm going to put a little bit of oil. And I'll start with the sliced onion to get it translucent. And when it's almost there, then I'll add the carrots, because I don't have to overcook the carrots. I like it a little firm. So, and then when the carrots are just cooked slightly, then I'll add my green onions or scallions, because I just want that to be lightly cooked. And I add a little bit of salt to this to kind of sweat it out and give a little bit of seasoning. Not too much, because we have our sauce that we're going to add in a little bit. So these vegetables I've chosen are pretty much the traditional vegetables, spinach, carrots, onions, but and the scallions. But you could add whatever vegetables you want. I've tried not only just the spinach, but you know the kale superfood mixture that's already been pre-washed in the package. I've tried that, and that works great. I've tried straight kale, and that works great. I've added red peppers, and I like that as well. So you can get pretty creative with the kind of vegetables you want to add to this Chap Chae. These are just more of the traditional vegetables that I grew up eating. But I've tried different kinds. And I think our boys seem to like these as well. But they'll eat the kale ones because it tastes, they won't know. Okay. And in the same frying pan, after it's almost getting there, so I am going to add my carrots. And I'll add a little bit of salt to this and kind of let it cook. So the only thing about the Chap Chae that I guess people say it's time consuming is the chopping, all the veggies, and then the fact that you're stir frying the veggies separately because you don't want to overcook them. So they're all, for that reason,
That's the reason you cook them separately, is so that you get the right texture.
You get the right texture, or like the nutritional, retaining the nutritional value of the vegetables that you're eating.
I thought that was key about the spinach, that you lose the B vitamins.
Which is water soluble. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then what little bit of moisture did come off the spinach, you just added, and so you're getting it in the noodles, which is with the whole dish. That's really, really awesome.
Yeah, I like that. So we have had it on a weeknight, but it would be the only thing I make. It would be like a warm salad. The kids like it, so but usually it's for a special occasion.
With the amount of time that it takes to make it, that's one of the reasons that it's special for holidays.
Yes.
And if you're doing for a large group, that's a lot of chopping.
That's right.
And a lot of cooking.
Right. So now that you've brought that up, so the recipe is, if you're serving it as a meal, this is about for 4 people. If you're going to have it just on the side, maybe for 8. But if you're really having this for a large crowd, church potluck or whatever, then you can imagine the quantity and the amount of chopping you're going to have to do. And this is my biggest frying pan that I have, and I could do everything in it very comfortably, but if I had to do like a double portion of this, it would be a little bit more challenging.
Yep.
So okay. Coming together, so the onions are getting translucent. So I'll add my green onions now, scallions. And the other thing about the Chap Chae that I like is you can refrigerate it and it's good the next day. I would not microwave this, but what I would do is in a frying pan with a little bit of oil, just reheat it. When the noodles get cold in the refrigerator, it turns white again. So you just have to warm it up until it becomes translucent.
So some noodles, outside of an egg noodle, a flour noodle, will get kind of crunchy. So this noodle doesn't do that, it just turns a little white.
Yeah.
Okay.
And firmer, even firmer than what you tasted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a good idea to heat it up just in the frying pan.
Yeah. Okay. And then I'm just waiting for the scallion, the green part, to wilt just a little bit, and then it'll be ready. And then we'll move on to the mushrooms. Now with the mushrooms, if this is very similar to the bulgogi sauce that if you've heard of the Korean bulgogi, which is a meat dish, this is very similar to that sauce. So we're using this sauce to also stir fry the mushrooms in it. And then it coats it, you know, you can smell like the sugar slightly burning, and there's the caramelization, and it has like a meaty look to it as well as the texture. And that's what we do with the mushrooms, as well as all the health benefits with the mushrooms that we have.
Well, we're eating the colors of the rainbow.
Yes.
We've got different colors here, and that's definitely
Right.
one of the goals in a plant-based diet.
Yes, so the other thing I think I mentioned already, that you could add other vegetables. So I have tried red peppers in this. I've even added the purple cabbage to these. That looks really pretty to add the colors. Instead of using the traditional spinach, I have used kale, and you know, the kids can't tell. It tastes fine. It tastes great, actually. And then, and you can, you know, whatever you want to try. I'm sure if you want to shred the beets like this and add it, that would be also a great option. So when we make this, traditionally we put egg garnish on it. So, and that would be vegetarian. Without the egg garnish, this would be a vegan dish. The noodles are gluten-free. The soy sauce, depending on what you're using, this one is not gluten-free. It's the one that you would get at the Korean market. But you can go to the Whole Foods or health food store and get the gluten-free option. The Korean market that I like to go to in Dayton is Pleasing Market. It's on Kaufman. If you are interested, I have the address. I can share that. They're very helpful. You know, you can ask them anything, and they'll direct you. The recipe that I submitted, it has what I like to do, but it's pretty much proportion-wise modified from a website, Korean Papsang, that I like to use. It's written by a Korean mom, mainly set up for her children to learn how to cook Korean food. Okay, so this is looking good. So I will add that to the bowl. Yeah, thank you. Now I'll add this. Let me just put a little bit of the and then I'll add about so you can see I've the lighter colored are the fresh shiitake, and the darker are the dehydrated shiitake that I was telling you about, which you could find also at the Korean market. And I like the dehydrated because I put two tablespoons in there. I like it because you could store it for almost up to a year, as long as it's stored properly. And the way I keep it is in a Ziploc there. And the reason why it's not in the original packaging is because what my mom does is she'll buy like a large quantity, and then she'll split it up with all of us kids. And we can just keep it in a dry, cool place. And then we'll let this cook. And okay, so I won't do it, but I had mentioned that the eggs are a traditional garnish on this. So what you would do is I'll just separate out the eggs and the whites, because it's all about color, right? I mean, when we eat, we are first eating with our eyes, and we want to have it look pretty or appetizing. So you can mix it and just have the yellow, but the way they do it normally is separate out the yolk and the whites, and then you just kind of make a little, like a thin omelet. You don't want to brown it at all. You want it to be that yellow color and the white color. So you're just waiting for it to cook slightly, and then you just, when it's cooled to the touch, you roll it up, and then you just slice it and add it on top of the finished product, and then usually top it with some sesame seeds. That's how you would use the egg. And
so you're actually frying the whites and the yellows
separate.
separately.
Mm-hmm. So you have a white and then, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. You can put a little bit more sauce because it looks very pale. Okay, let that cook just a little bit more. So really, I think including all the chopping and the actual stir fry, I think the whole recipe could come together in less than an hour, especially if you're making a small quantity. I think it's different when you're making it, yeah, for a larger crowd.
And our
Yeah,
this is not cooking as fast as
Yes.
it normally would at home.
yeah, exactly. Because usually I would be done.
Yeah.
All right. So once you have finished with the mushrooms, okay, great. Once you've finished with the mushrooms, I actually, and I've done this so many times with this particular recipe, I do add a couple more. And usually I even add the whole thing, and that's what it tastes like, But it depends on, if you don't like it too salty, then you just add less.
Now I'm going to have to confess, I did have some.
Okay,
You better guard this on the way out the door, otherwise I'll have it.
okay.
I love Asian food, I love Korean food, and you guys are just going to love this recipe because it is phenomenal. Yeah, you can add all that sauce. For me.
Yeah, for me too.
Oh, I'm wearing my noodles,
Okay.
but this is so worth the time. Joyce, thank you so much. This is fantastic.
Well, thanks for having me show this noodle dish. It was fun.
It is very good. Thanks. Courtney, tell me a little bit about yourself.
I am a lover of food,
Okay.
and I love to cook food.
All right.
So I just moved out to Ohio from California last year, so I'm new to the area. And
What do you do for work?
well, right now I'm in school. I'm going
Okay.
back to school. I'm studying to be an X-ray technologist.
Okay.
So I got one more year on that, and then I'll, like a psychologist, I'll be able to see inside of everyone just a lot faster.
It might be a little more accurate too.
Yeah.
So, what do you like to do for fun?
I like to be outdoors. I like to cook, and I just like to be involved in whatever's going on with my church, my friends. So,
Done any outdoor cooking?
Yeah, I like going camping and trying new ways to cook things. Sometimes people think that what I'm doing is a little crazy, but for me, it's always worth a
They
shot.
always eat it, don't they?
Yeah, when you're out in the woods, you don't have a lot of options. So
Yep. Have you
be
done
picky.
any cast iron cooking?
not really, no.
All right, we need
but
to do a cast iron
Yeah.
month.
I always keep my eyes out for the Dutch ovens too, like at the
Yes.
thrift store. So.
Yes, we'll have
Yeah.
to do that because it's a lot of fun. All right, so what are we making today?
So today I'm going to be making a cream corn casserole. That's one of my favorites of my family. Interestingly enough, my dad loves cream corn. My mom hates cream corn. And so I have become the one that makes sure that it's present at the Thanksgiving or even Christmas table for my dad. So I found a really good recipe that I like, and it's really simple. And that's part of why I like it. When we're around the holidays, lots of stuff going on, especially with all the cooking. So trying to simplify one aspect of it, I think is great.
Excellent idea. Show us how you do
Okay.
it.
So pretty simple here. We have a small list of ingredients. We're going to combine them all in a mixing bowl. So the famous cream style corn, 1 can of that. And then I usually like to use frozen corn because it is more nutritious for you, but this recipe calls for the exact amount of canned corn, so if you want to just be quick, you can do that too. I'm going to put that in there. All right. And then a stick of melted butter goes in with this. And that butter I use is actually plant-based butter. Now you can get plant-based in sticks in just pretty much every grocery store now. They have options. So this is all going to be plant-based, no dairy in this recipe. I'm using Paula Dean's recipe, and that might like ruin her rules of how she likes to cook because I know she likes all that good dairy in there. But we're going to make it just as good. And then I also have a plant-based sour cream that's going to go in this. Let's see. There we go. So I like the Kite Hill brand of stuff, and this is an 8 ounce, which is exactly the amount that you need, so no measuring. If you notice so far, I haven't had to measure anything. It's 1 can, a stick, 1 container. It's really simple. Now, the last ingredient to this, cornbread mix. Now, I learned something interesting when I was getting ready to do this. I never knew there was a vegetarian version of Jiffy cornbread mix. I always just grabbed it off the shelf. Turns out it had lard in it, and I didn't think that there would be any like animal product in it. So if you're going to the store, you can look for the Jiffy brand that's easy. I also like Bob's Red Mill, but it comes in a bigger bag, and like I said, I'm going for easy, and I don't have to measure this. I can just dump it in. So just 1 box of the cornbread mix. All right. Now I'm going to get my serving spatula. I'm going to mix this all up. And I picked the spatula because I'm going to need something to help get it out of the bowl when I'm done. So I might as well just use one tool, and that simplifies cleanup. As you can see, I'm going for as simple as possible. So everything combines pretty well there, just easy. All right. So now I'm going to get my dish out. And you can use a 9x13 pan or one of these classic round white casserole dishes. I just like the look of this. It makes me think of, a festive meal, so I like to use that. And we're going to grease that real quick. This is a spray olive oil that I have. And here's the most complicated part. You're going to pour this all in. Just get that. That's good. And then this recipe calls for a cup of shredded cheese. You usually use this mostly for the topping. I have a plant-based cheese here. Everything's plant-based. I'm going to put a little in and just mix it into the top. And I'll save the rest for later. Just kind of mix that out a little bit. Might put a little bit more in. Everyone loves something that's gooey and cheesy. All right. So as you can see, we're done. Now we're going to stick our casserole dish in the oven for close to an hour at 350 degrees. So we're going to put this in the oven, and then we'll come back and I'll show you what we have when we're done.
All right, Courtney, this is the
Cream corn
casserole.
Yep.
Yep, and it was in what temperature oven for how long?
It was at 350 for almost an hour, about 50-55 minutes. You can check it just like you do a pie to see if it jiggles, or if you put a knife in it, if it gets soft in the middle.
Yep, because that's nice and firm.
Yep, and then about 10 minutes before, maybe 15 before it's getting close to being done, you can throw that shredded cheese on there and it'll melt up.
And I like your choice of choy cheese because it's one of them that I think the flavor is really good and it does melt a little bit. So let's give it a taste and see what we got. It's still hot right out of the oven.
Doesn't get fresher than this.
Nope. And see, you got a little bit of that cornbread look on it.
That's right. You get a little bit of that crust on the outside, and
Yep, it's nice and soft and warm. Oh yeah, we'll be making this at our house. Thank you, this is awesome.
you're welcome.
All right, you're gonna make for us a holiday gravy, and that'd be good for mashed potatoes and a loaf for patties or anything like that. So share with us how you make your gravy.
Okay, so the first thing I'm gonna do is I actually don't use oil for this. Sometimes I like to just use vegetable stock as my oil.
That's good, that's great.
So,
go ahead.
So probably want to put the onions first.
There you go.
That was probably,
We got it nice and hot this time.
yeah, I noticed that. Okay. So I cut up about maybe half. Ooh, I think it's a little too hot.
Go ahead, dump it in. It'll be okay. There you go.
All right. So it just kind of depends how much stock you want to put in there. I don't measure things, I just kind of add. But typically, I guess some recipes say like maybe 1 to 2 teaspoons.
So you're just using the stock to saute your onions with?
Right.
Okay.
So I'm going to saute them a little bit. It looks like until they're translucent.
Okay. We'll give them a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
Now, do you make this gravy a little more often than holiday?
Not really. We tend to eat pretty bland, you know.
Simple?
Yeah, very simple, like, yeah, lots of fruits, lots of vegetables.
Yep.
So this is like kind of like a treat, you know, when, yeah. So
For
typically
holiday.
for the holidays.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's more work, you know, I work full time, so
Right.
I don't really have time to be spending all day in the kitchen.
Right.
I would love to, though. It's fun.
I
but-
think you said you have 2 teenage boys?
Yes.
Now,
Yeah.
have either one of them taken an interest in cooking?
No, unfortunately not. Like, I try to, like, have them have, like, a day of cooking, and they're just, like, they don't like it. I'm just totally disappointed, but, you know, what can
It
you do?
is what it is. They have
Yeah.
other interests.
You can't make them, right?
No.
All right, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm gonna add, I don't remember how many. I think it might have been, Oh, yeah, this is about like 10 mushrooms, 10 small mushrooms, and I just cut them up and into little cubes here. And I think I may add just a little bit more vegetable stock here. Although, like, mushrooms do tend to kind of be...
They'll weep on you a
yeah,
little bit.
yeah.
Yep.
So, and we're going to do this for maybe just until they get nice and soft.
So they start breaking down a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Looks like we've got the mushrooms and the onions are translucent. That's looking good.
Mm-hmm.
What you gonna do from now?
So now we're just going to add 5 tablespoons of potato flour. And that's going to thicken it up really good. We're going to add 3 tablespoons of Bragg's liquid amino. And then I combined all my seasonings here. So this is 1 tablespoon or 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, onion powder, dried sage, thyme, I think, and yes, thyme. And then half a teaspoon of black pepper and half a teaspoon of salt. Okay. Let me just kind of mix that together here. Okay.
So far, this sounds gluten-free.
It is. It's gluten-free, oil-free. Okay, so maybe I should add the nutritional yeast and go ahead and add this because it's kind of thickening up already.
Now, is this some more?
So this is more broth. This is 1 cup of vegetable stock, but I think we may have to add a little bit more here. So you just want it to kind of like thicken up really nicely here, which is it's doing.
That potato starch is making it potato flour. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you don't have to use potato flour. You can use, real flour if you don't want to do it gluten-free. Or there's other kinds of flours you can use to make it gluten-free as well, such as rice flour.
So what you're really doing at this point is just adding the broth to get to the thickness that you want.
Right, yes. And then depending on how you like it, you can either just kind of, eat it as is if you like it chunky, or if you prefer it nice and smooth, you can blend it.
I could see this a little bit like a mushroom gravy that you could use for a green bean casserole or, you're right, over potatoes or over a roast. Yeah, that would be.
Right, so you can use this for anything. It's just, instead of buying it already made, if you have time, and you can actually cook it before and just have it ready.
Yeah, for whenever you need it.
Yeah, absolutely. You can freeze it. And then you can add, more salt or pepper if you, all taste acquired.
Okay.
What do you think?
I like that. That is an awesome gravy. And it's good just that way, but I can see if you put it in the blender, then you'd have a creamy gravy. So you've got 2 different gravies in one.
Right.
I like that it's gluten-free. I like the idea of the potato starch. That's awesome. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
There's nothing better for New Year's party or any kind of party is a good cheese ball, and I think looks like you may have come up with a good plant-based one. Share with us.
Yes. So this is something my mom makes every year for like Christmas, New Year's. She got it from the cookbook it's called Simply Yummy cookbook, and it's by Melody Prettyman. And this is just called a vegan cream cheese ball. I actually went ahead and made this ahead of time because it requires a lot of chilling time. But what I put in it is, this is like the Kroger brand of cream cheese. It called for tofutti. They actually didn't have tofutti when I went to the store, but they had this one. So any type will do. Kite Hill is another really good brand. And then, so you put 2 of those in there. You mix in 3 to 4 green onions chopped up. And then you put in 2 tablespoons of pimentos. And you just want to make sure you get all the liquid out of that. So you don't want any extra liquid in this because you want it to be nice and firm. And the same with relish. So I use some sweet relish, 2 tablespoons of that, and then 2 tablespoons of the relish, and then a tablespoon of horseradish. This is a cream. If you use like chopped up horseradish, you also want to make sure you get all the liquid out of that. And I actually added an extra relish just because it tasted like it needed it. And a little extra lemon juice. So it calls for a teaspoon of lemon juice, and I just poured in a little extra. And then what you do is chill it, but the recipe says to chill the ball first in the fridge for like an hour, and then you bring it out and then put the walnuts underneath of it, and then put the cheese ball on top, and then layer it with walnuts. But my mom taught me this trick of getting a bowl and just putting saran wrap on the bottom of it, lining it with walnuts, putting the cream cheese ball on top, and then you can line it again. So now it's already covered. So we're just gonna take that out. So it's been in the fridge all night long. And so I'm just peeling that away. So it calls for 1.5 cups, but it's just kind of, you're just wanting to get that covered on there. And it's kind of not super round, not a super round ball, but it's...
By the time we get done with it, it's not going to be round
exactly.
either.
So you can serve it with homemade crackers, which I have a recipe for we're going to be using. Or you can use it as like a dip for vegetables, and it's really good.
Let's give this a try. It looks fantastic.
Yeah. And I actually added black olives to it too. That's an alternative you can add to it. I like olives, not everyone does, but I added olives to the recipe as well.
This is great. This makes a great holiday cheese ball.
Nice little party food.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
that's great.
You're welcome.
Okay, we saw a cheese ball. Let's have some crackers to go with that cheese
Yeah.
ball. All right.
Nothing better than homemade crackers. This is from Minimalist Baker, and it's a really simple, easy recipe. We're gonna add 3/4 cup of flour, and you can make these gluten-free by just subbing in for gluten-free flour. And then you're gonna add 2 tablespoons of flaxseed meal. So if you have whole flax seeds, all you'll do is just grind them, and that makes them kind of into more of a flour meal. And then it's 2/3 cup of almond meal or almond flour. So you just put that all in a bowl. And then we're gonna add the rest of our dry ingredients. We have 1/4 teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of salt, an 1/8 teaspoon of garlic powder. And you can do that, you can put this in if you want, you don't have to. And then it says to add a neutral oil like grapeseed or avocado. I have avocado. I think it gives it a good flavor. So you'll add in 3.5 tablespoons here. So we'll just go ahead and dump this in. And then the next part, so we're gonna mix this up, and you wanna add cold water to where it just forms kind of a nice dough. So we're gonna mix this all together. And then we're gonna just slowly add in some, it says cold water, so I just put this in right before we got started here. I'll add a couple tablespoons, maybe 3, because it says 3 to 5. You can also do this in your food processor, which makes it kind of nice and easy. Or if you don't want to lug that around, you can just use a bowl and a fork. So this still looks a little dry, so I'm going to just add a little more water. Now this recipe has fresh rosemary in it. I don't have my rosemary over here with me, so we're just going to do plain crackers. And you can put in any kind of herb here that you would like. We're gonna add a little bit more. You just kind of want it to form a little bit of a ball of dough here. Okay. So once that's firm, it says to put in the fridge for an hour. That's just to kind of make it firm up, stick together. I actually, when I've made these before, I skipped that step because I didn't read the directions. And it worked out okay. So, but I'm sure it would work better if you did it that way. So it looks like it's sticking together pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead and just put this on parchment paper. I love using parchment paper, and I get the pre-cut kind, which makes it really easy. So I'm just going to put it on here and roll it out. Actually, we're going to take it off there real quick. Thank you, Paulette. Let's move over. Okay. And you want to make sure they're kind of thin. It says to roll it out to where they're 1/8 of an inch thick. And again, I didn't actually use like a measure. I just kind of was like, that looks thin enough. And I had to bake them longer. So if that happens to you, just leave them in the oven a little bit longer and they should turn out nice and crispy.
So you bake them in what temperature oven?
You're supposed to bake them at, where was it? 325. And then you want to do it for about 22 minutes.
Okay.
And before you put them in, you can pre-cut them with like a little pizza cutter. So I just go ahead and lightly make the lines here. My mom has a really fancy, there's actual ones to make crackers, so they have like the little ridges. If you want to be fancy, you can do that.
Sometimes we're fancy,
Yeah.
sometimes we're not.
That's right. Today we're just making it nice and easy.
As Christine said, easy peasy.
That's right. So some of these are a little jagged, but that's okay. Those can be your taste tester ones. And then you'll just stick this in the oven. And when they're done, they'll come out looking something like this. So
And trust me, these are
they're
good.
really, really good.
These are good.
Really good with a dip.
Really good with your cheese
Yeah.
ball. Enjoy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jessica and Faith, it looks like we have Brussels sprouts. Do you like Brussels sprouts? Ah, that's fantastic. Well, I want to see your favorite way to make Brussels sprouts. So show me how you make Brussels sprouts.
All right, this is a pretty easy, throw together quickly roasted Brussels sprout recipe. I like it for the holidays. A lot of the vegetable recipes are very heavy. The casseroles, which are very good, but this is a kind of a lighter alternative that you can make to go with the traditional holiday meals. So you start with a bag, about this size of Brussels sprouts. and you would trim them. So you would chop the ends off, and then any, you know, yellow leaves if it has any, and you can cut them in little you cut them in half, or if the really big ones, you can quarter them. And you're going to add to this bowl of cut Brussels sprouts a couple tablespoons of olive oil. So you want to do that for me? Okay, so we're going to do 2 tablespoons. Just dump, no, right here. Yeah, it's okay. There we go. Couple tablespoons of olive oil, and then we're going to do probably about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And I forgot my spatula, so we're going to mix it with this. This will work. There we got one. Thank you. Okay. So you want to mix here. You clean that up for me. So you mix this together. Then you're going to put this on a baking sheet. We have one of these silicone liners, or you could use parchment paper, just so it doesn't stick too bad. And what you want to do is kind of flip them all over on their flat side as much as possible, so they can cook evenly, because about halfway through or so you would flip them over to the other side so that you can get them kind of golden or a little bit blackened on each side. So you're going to cook these. You're going to put your oven to, I think, 400 and cook them for about 20 minutes. So we will stick those in the oven. And then while you were doing that, you are going to take half a cup of pecans. I think it was, yeah, half a cup, or 1 cup actually, sorry, 1 cup of pecans. And you would kind of give those a rough chop. You can, your preference, and you would also toast these. So you throw these on a baking sheet and put them in the same, 400-degree oven at the same time for about 5 minutes. It just gets them toasted. And then the other thing you would do, these dried cranberries, you would take a half a cup of these. What we did, just to kind of plump them up a little bit, is to get some boiling water and let them soak in the boiling water for about 5-10 minutes, and then you get they're just a little bit more juicy, I guess. So we will take those ingredients, and then we're going to kind of mix them together once the Brussels sprouts we're done cooking. So they're cooking for about 20-25 minutes at a 400-degree oven, and you're going to, at about 10 minutes to go, you would take them out and flip them to the other side. So we can do that. So when you get your Brussels sprouts out, you would have them nice and kind of browned, like so. And then you would take your cranberries and your pecans, and then you mix it all together. And if you wanted to add a little bit more olive oil or more salt or pepper, anything like that, at this point you can. You just taste it and adjust as needed. But it's just a quick, easy, kind of sweet and crunchy. And oh, the other thing that I like doing, this is optional, but I like taking a balsamic glaze. This one's just a pre-made glaze that you can get. It's just sweetened with grapes, which is nice. And then you just do a nice little drizzle of that at the end, and it's done.
That looks really good. I like that idea of the glaze.
Yeah, I think it's just you can make it yourself by getting balsamic vinaigrette and reducing it down, and you can sweeten it. This one was actually already sweetened just with grapes, so it's a little bit thicker than your just traditional balsamic. Nice. So it's a nice finishing touch.
The glaze is a really good idea.
Yeah.
And I'm sure it gives it that so shall we try this, Faith?
Yeah.
You want to try it? Let's see what we got here. Here, one for your mother.
Thank you.
One for you. one for me. I want to get
right.
one that's got a little glaze on it.
Got
Oh, yum, 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 yum. All right. That is really good.
Good?
That's really simple.
Yeah,
Thank
very
you.
simple. Yeah.
Awesome job, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Courtney, I'm looking forward to this recipe because at late October, vegan eggnog comes out, and this looks like it could be a little healthier than what I'm finding in the store. So I'm excited about vegan eggnog. Share with us.
Thanks. Yeah. I don't know about you out there watching, but I love eggnog, and I am sad that I can only find it in the stores, during that one small period of time. But I was excited to find an option that didn't include eggs. You can put it in the fridge and not have to wonder if it's spoiled or not. So this is a pretty simple recipe. We're gonna take all our ingredients and put them in the blender. So I'm gonna start off with 3 cups of plant-based milk. You can do almond milk, cashew milk, oat milk, whatever is your favorite, and you can even adjust the recipe. Sometimes I'll do like a half and half, half of like an almond or a cashew to get a different texture. So just gonna pour that in and make a big mess. If it's not messy, you aren't cooking, right? All right, and then we're gonna put some spices in, and we've got a half teaspoon of ground cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. We're gonna put in here. Then to sweeten it up, I've got a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. I'm not going to put that all in to start. I'm going to put most of it in and then leave it if we need to sweeten it up a little bit more. Okay. Now, what's going to give this eggnog its thick texture is actually some coconut milk. So I put this in the fridge before doing this. It'll be a little harder to get out of there, but when you're done blending everything, your whole beverage will be cooler to start with. On that note, I also put my almond milk in the freezer before I started this. You don't want to freeze the almond milk, just get it nice and cool, because once you blend it, it's gonna warm up some. You can, if you want, serve this over ice. Or you could even heat it up. Another way to do a different take is to get like a coconut whipped cream. They have some of that actually comes in spray cans. You could spray that on the top and sprinkle some cinnamon and nutmeg on the top when you're done. All right. I'm just gonna mix that all around a little first. Okay, and then the last thing I'm going to put in here is a teaspoon of vanilla extract. Okay, so now that we've got all our ingredients in the blender, we're going to blend this. If you notice that the coconut milk was pretty thick, so we're going to blend this for close to 2 minutes to get our desired thickness. All right, so we're done blending, and I'm going to call my friend Paulette up here really quick to help me out. So another important part of this holiday dish is your festive holiday drinking glass. So Paulette, I'm going to have you be my taste tester, since that's what we pay you to do. Okay. Give that a taste and see if it's sweet enough.
Needs a tad bit
Needs
more.
more. All right, here we go. So we're going to drop this in.
to need is some chill.
Yep. So what you can do is you can take this and set it in the
Set it in the freezer.
fridge because it is warm from being blended for so long.
Mighty close. That's
Yeah.
great. Good job.
So like any recipe, you can adjust it to your taste. You can add in some more cinnamon or nutmeg or sweetener. But pretty simple, pretty easy. Not a lot of time to have a really delicious eggnog that is dairy and egg free.
Excellent. Thank you, Courtney.
Right.
Okay, I see these are happy cookies. Now, where'd this recipe come from?
Oh, it's one of Neil Nedley's recipes.
And for the, it's slipping my mind also. Yeah, for the mind, Depression Way Out.
Yes.
One of his Depression Way Out recipes.
Right.
Okay, and what are, you're starting with, yeah.
Yes, we're going to be starting with a meal, walnut meal. But if you do, so you'll start with 2.5 cups walnuts, process it. This goes in to a mixing bowl. Okay, sometimes it can be like a paste. So you want to watch it when you process it. Okay, try to get that all in. All the good stuff. Walnuts are rich in antioxidants and helps for brain function and boosts your mood. So many good benefits for it. All right. Can I scoop up a little
I'll
bit
get
more?
that out for you.
Thanks so much. Okay, as Chef Paulette is doing that, let's add 2 and 3 cups whole wheat pastry flour. Then 1 teaspoon salt and our 1/3 ground flaxseed cup. Great. Thank you. And then 1 teaspoon salt. Just salt. Give this a mix. Get the dry ingredients mixed first, and then we'll add in maple syrup, 1/2 cup maple syrup. Also, carrot chips or chocolate chips, whatever you like. This is 1/3 carrot chocolate chips. Then we have 2 teaspoons vanilla. Just take an eyeball it. Okay, let's give this all a mix. Great, that looks good. Get all the good stuff. Alrighty. Now, we have over here a lightly sprayed cookie sheet, and we'll use a, I can't remember the size of this ice cream scooper, but that would help to scoop it up all. All right.
It's a just right size.
There we go. Great. All right. That looks good. Now, I'm going to scoop that up and hold a few. These can, once you do this, you want to flatten it up with a fork to get that flat cookie look.
I'm guessing you bake these.
Yes, we bake that at 350 for 10 to 15 minutes.
Okay.
Okay. And they make a dozen. There we go.
All right, we'll stick these in the oven
Yep.
for a few minutes
Yep.
and see what we got.
Okay. I'll just add to that one.
Got it.
Great.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you
Yay.
very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, here's our finished product for our happy cookies, and they look marvelous. They're
Oh,
warm out of the oven, and let's give this little one a taste.
There you go. Thanks.
Real good. Now you said you use carob chips or chocolate.
Chocolate.
Chocolate, okay.
Yeah.
But you could use either carob or chocolate.
Carob chocolate, yes.
All right. Thank you so much. Really
You're welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right.